What does a glitch attraction hide off camera during the final area in the game? The sixth escape room is the back alley, and it's based off of Five Nights at Freddy's 6, aka Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator. Scrap Baby, Molten Freddy, Music Man, and ScrapTrap all pose as threats in this outside environment. In this video, we'll be covering this entire area to see what things are hidden and to see what things we can break. Beyond that, we'll be heading into the basement to take a look at the burn trap and Vanny cutscene. We have a lot to cover, so I hope you enjoy. Now, when you're stuck in an escape room and racing against the clock, you don't have time to make it to the grocery store. Thankfully, the sponsor of today's video, HelloFresh, makes all of that a bit easier. Making videos and games sort of can be a whirlwind sometimes, so having some of HelloFresh's 35+ different weekly recipes delivered right to my door saves my butt when I forget to head outside and touch grass once in a while. You can even customize your proteins, sides, or add protein to veggie-only dishes. HelloFresh ends up being a lot cheaper than takeout, and it saves me valuable time shopping at grocery stores. It's delivered to your door in refrigerated packaging, which keeps your meals fresh even if you're not home right away. It's honestly been pretty neat following their guides to cook dishes I may have never considered cooking otherwise. Like, look at this lemon chicken pasta. It was super good, and following the step-by-step recipe card made it a breeze. So if you're looking to save some time and money and cook some great meals, go to HelloFresh.com and use code HorrorScoped21 for 21 free meals plus free shipping. That's HelloFresh.com with code HorrorScoped21. And a huge thanks to HelloFresh for sponsoring this video and supporting me as a creator. Let's head into the back alley. As always, we start with a very brief recap. Your player emerges into this area and has several tasks that must be done. The first task, I usually finish, is the pizza minigame, where you must feed the hungry children. Clearing this gives you a prize in the projection room. Next, we must find 3 notes hidden around the map to get the combination to the key safe. This key lets us open the projector room. We grab our coin prize from the pizza minigame, pop it into this stationary animatronic, and then press these 2 buttons to get a bunch of flyer pieces. These must be moved around on the projector to make this flyer. And afterwards, we pull the lever and grab the shears that double as bolt cutters. We can then cut our way to the end of the escape room. Mind you, during all of this, we need to flash Molten Freddy to keep them away, and use a computer system to stop Scrap Baby and ScrapTrap. So I always like starting these things off with the title screen. So here we go. So what you see here is the normal angle that you see on this title screen. We have Music Man off to the right, and we have Scrap Baby who walks back and forth, and we have Molten Freddy who pops out in front of us. Now, things look much weirder when we move the camera around. So first off, if we move the camera, we can see Scrap Baby just straight up walk through the fence and objects. They do not hop over the fence like they do in the actual game, and it almost seems like this Scrap Baby is using the same walking animation as tjoc from the earlier escape room. So although these title screens are usually a reduced version of the actual area within the game, ScrapTrap can still be found here despite the interior of this area not existing. But for some reason, ScrapTrap is placed beneath the ground, just floating off in the void, as if they are still sitting in their chair. This is beneath the ground, not far from where the Music Man is at. I'm not entirely sure why they kept him here, similar to how Funtime Foxy was kept in an earlier escape room, but here he is. Now, my favorite part of the title screen is Molten Freddy, because they appear around this map and they seemingly drip down or extend outward from where they spawn. So for example, we can see Molten Freddy appear in the sky and drip down, but when they retract, they actually clip back through themselves. It looks pretty strange regardless of what angle you look at. But of course, this is something that the player would never see. Molten Freddy also rises and sinks into the floor, and underground, their torso shoots through their mouth. It's like they vomited up their own body. Now, in my opinion, Molten Freddy is the star of this title screen, but it is interesting to see where Scrap Baby also walks when they go through the corridor, because they just walk straight into a wall, and then we can follow them out into the void and they just vanish. But that wraps up the title screen, so now let's go into the actual game. So upon booting this up, the first thing I want to do is head out of bounds. There's an entire forest area just beyond this fence, and I wanted to check it out. Now before we do that, I wanted to show off something near the ending. So if we hack our way through this gate and we follow this down to the ending of this area, we can see that there is text put here to call out cheaters. It says, "Sorry pal, no end for cheaters." Apparently at one point there was an easy skip to get back here, and it was something that speedrunners figured out. I just find it funny that this callout is here. So now we're going to move past the fence and into the forest. And this forest area is actually pretty big. There's lots of trees scattered about, and there's even some hills and other earthy geometry out here. Now these hills will be important later on because in this video we're coming back out here and doing an experiment. So just remember that they are here for the time being. So at this point, I want to start messing with the animatronics, and I need a safe place to store my character. Now, generally, animatronics can reach you almost anywhere on the map, unless you are placed above the map. So what I did was utilize that screen, the one that pops down to tell you how to basically survive in the escape room. This screen retracts back into the ceiling, and if we warp our character up above the ceiling, we will fall onto the screen and we can use it as a floating platform. So, now when Scrap Baby comes looking for us and jumps over the fence, they will get stuck running beneath the player. They have reached the player's position in terms of X and Z values, but they cannot reach us due to our difference in Y value. So now they're frozen in place and we can start to disassemble them. So the first thing to go on Scrap Baby is their outer casing, which is their outfit. And once that is removed, we can begin taking off the individual plates. Now this process takes a bit of time because there are a lot of different parts. But when all the plating is finally removed, Scrap Baby truly looks terrifying as an endo. Just look at that face. If that was chasing me, I would be truly terrified. We can also take out sections of the hair too, and this is what that looks like. Now that Scrap Baby is, well, scrapped, let's turn our attention to Molten Freddy. So normally, this animatronic loads and unloads from the map, but if we force them to load in before a position is set in one of the two corridors, they'll get stuck in place at the map's center like this. And at this point, Molten Freddy cannot actually move, so we can move them wherever we want. This is because when Molten Freddy spawns in, they normally have to follow a set path down the vent system until they come out of it. And once they come out, movement is restored and then they can freely roam. We normally flash Molten Freddy during this set movement path to avoid their jump scare and force them backwards in the vent. But if we move to the back of those vents, we can actually watch Molten Freddy appear. They just spawn in and the door opens up. And they both appear and disappear back here while the vent door obscures the player's view. So like I was saying, if Molten Freddy escapes, they can then chase the player around the map. And they will do so even through the locked gate. So if we head to the escape room exit while the gate is still locked, Molten Freddy will fuse through the gate and chase us down this corridor. Now, if we hop into the forest beyond the gate, Molten Freddy's gonna get hung up a bit trying to figure out how to reach us, but eventually they will figure out a way and they will fuse through a wall and then chase us through the forest. And this is very, very intimidating. So the one benefit we have to being out here is that the hills can aid us in avoiding Molten Freddy. Molten Freddy's pathfinding, which is basically the developer lingo for how Molten Freddy reaches the player, that direct path from animatronic to player, well, it does not anticipate when the player falls. So the player can take shortcuts by falling off these hills and ledges, but Molten Freddy has to go all the way around. Molten Freddy is constantly recalculating this distance and trying to come up with the best way to reach us. But eventually, we can toy around too much and get cornered. And then Molten Freddy will chase us through the Five Nights at Freddy's back rooms behind the walls. It's either Molten Freddy's gonna kill us or the Void does. So we try our luck and jump into the endless beyond. And we can look up and see the level disappear above us. So upon reloading, now it's time to mess with ScrapTrap. This creepy fellow slowly moves in this chair until he eventually chases after you. And what's interesting is I actually had a glitch occur with ScrapTrap, where he froze in place during his pursuit trigger. So he's supposed to get up and run towards the player, but he actually got stuck in his chair. So walking up to him in his chair, which normally does not kill you, did kill me and it triggered the jump scare. But since ScrapTrap is stuck in this chair for a very long period of time, it's the perfect opportunity to take him apart. We remove his head plate first to see more of the skull. Then we take off his nose and his torso plates for the rabbit suit. Then we cut off his eyebrows and then his floating rabbit teeth. What we're left with is this creepy human skeleton face. He looks very, very terrifying from any angle. But even though he looks like this, if we do the chair glitch again and we trigger the jump scare, we'll see that his suit fully reloads during the jump scare. Moving on to our next victim, it's time to go after Music Man. Now, Music Man is standing outside, and he does not activate until after 15 minutes. But once he does, he behaves just like the other animatronics that chase after you. But during those 15 minutes, we can take him apart. What's kind of funny is that inside, Music Man is basically two black spheres with a tube connecting them. So, once we remove the outer plating, that's what we can see. It's a really simple interior design. So now that we've covered this back alley area, it's time to move on. So we head into the basement area, and because this is a new place, that means there is a new title screen. So this basement is in the same room that the final cutscene happens in, so it's kind of interesting to create a title screen area for something that's so short. I mean, the player's gonna spend maybe a minute or two in here, but then they move on. So in this room, Vanny appears in 2 different locations, and each time she pokes out of the walls and the doors. So she's basically clipping through a solid object, like the other animatronics that we've seen before, and just like those same animatronics, they look a little funny out of bounds. Because when Vanny retracts out of bounds, she sort of gets all scrunched up. She folds up rather painfully as she hides outside the map. And this is very similar to the title screen vent area, which I did not show off in a previous video. In that, Vanny pokes out around the corners and does the same sort of animation. But now let's head into the area itself in the game. So, quick recap. When you enter the basement, there's a computer you must walk up to. On it, you'll find various files to explore, but after a while you get a warning that a human has been detected in the area. Unfortunately for you, it's Vanny, and she whacks you upside the head. She then drags you across the floor into a different room before cutting you with a knife and taking your blood for a remnant experiment. Your blood is then given to ScrapTrap as he emerges and eventually jump scares you. Now, turning back the clock, we can take a look at these rooms prior to entering them. So we can fly around up top and look at all the things within. Now, there's not a lot of interesting things in these rooms because all the objects for the cutscenes only load in when the cutscene is triggered. However, we can find something interesting beneath the desk, and that is an endo. And this endo is clipping through the floor and its limbs are sort of stretched out. Now going back and activating the cutscene though, we can see the scene play out from a different point of view. So we are on the ground, and Vanny is basically clipping through the floor. This is done so she can be eye to eye with the player, and her bottom's out of view anyways. She then gets up and slides over to ScrapTrap's container without moving her feet. And after she's done with ScrapTrap's machine, she then walks through a wall and slides out of bounds. The lights go out, and ScrapTrap is moved across the room where the jump scare triggers. Now, there is one final area left to cover, which is the memory section of the game. Something that's quite small, but it's actually not. When wrapping this video up, I found tons and tons of things that I did not expect. So if you want to see all the crazy things I found, subscribe now for the final glitched attraction video, because it was simply too much to tack on to the end of this one. Thanks for watching, and cheers.